that, I'd like to introduce a man who's been working tirelessly for civil rights in Providence, but also throughout New England, and a recognized figure and somebody who has done more and more often than most can in a lifetime. It's true. He does more. He may just show up everywhere. Just don't follow his Facebook page. I'd like to introduce Brother Jim Vincent, President of the Providence branch of the NAACP. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for that more than generous introduction. I want everyone to give this man who works tirelessly a round of applause, because we need more Michael Rujos in Providence. Would you agree? We need more Michael Rujos. That's what we need. If we had more Michael Rujos, things in this state would be radically different. Radically. All right. So why am I doing this work? I mean, people ask me that on a regular basis. Well, let's look at the civil rights movement. You know, it wasn't because I was in Montgomery, Alabama, and I was with Rosa Parks trying to integrate the bus system. No. It wasn't because of that, because I was 4 years old. It wasn't because of the Little Rock 9 in Little Rock, Arkansas, trying to integrate that high school. I wasn't down in Arkansas then. When that happened, I was 6. It wasn't in Greenboro, North Carolina with the Greenboro 4 who were trying to integrate the lunch counter. I would have been with them, I hope, but you never know, because I was 8. True confession, I wasn't at the March on Washington in '63. I wasn't there. I was home. I was in the 6th grade. I was 11. However, something after the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act happened. 50 years ago was the assassination of Martin Luther King. So I, like most people, were very saddened and distraught by that. But I didn't know how that event would radically change my life. As a black person in the south end of Boston, the poorest neighborhood in the city out of 18 neighborhoods, being a son of immigrants from the Cape Verde Islands, I just didn't know. I was 16 years old when that happened, junior in high school. But what happened after that summer of rioting and unrest and demonstrations was something that was interesting in terms of the civil rights movement. And I'm not just talking about the NAACP, the Urban League, SCLC, SNCC, CORE. I'm talking about everybody that was doing anything at that time, 50 years ago, because we have to get away from this notion that it was several people or just several organizations. It is thousands of people and thousands of organizations. It was true then, and it's true now. Nobody owns a movement. So what happened was that education became what was really important, at least in terms of the black community in 1968. So they pushed and was able to get concessions from the best schools in the country, the Ivy League, MIT, West Point, Annapolis. And what happened that year, 3 times or maybe 4 times, the black student population was being accepted. I was a senior that year, and I was benefiting from that. I was benefiting from people who fought, bled, and died to give me that chance at that moment. So I'm no hero. There was another person that graduated from Detroit at the same time, public housing. Mother was illiterate. Now, my mother was a 7th grade dropout, but she wasn't illiterate. My father was home. His mother was a single parent, and he did well in Detroit. But he didn't go to the University of Detroit or Michigan State. He got his ticket punched and went to Yale. Then he went to Johns Hopkins, and he retired 5 years ago as the #1 pediatric neurosurgeon in the world. Black person. But that person's name is Dr. Ben Carson, and he's lost his way. All right? And Jim Vincent, who graduated the same year from high school has never lost his way and never will. That's a debt I can never repay. So I'm in this to the life, for my entire life, until I can't breathe anymore. Because I know that my parents didn't march with King. They were in Cape Verde. I know there was nobody in my family that was on the freedom rides in 1961 with buses getting firebombed. But yet I benefited. So I owe, and that's what I give back. Nothing altruistic, it's just fairness. Now, what is the NAACP Providence Branch doing? Right now, we're focusing on 2 things, okay? We could focus on 100 things, but you got to be focused to be effective, right? Right? Focus. Let's focus. So what we're focused in on is Nellie Gorbea, the Secretary of State's early voting bill. Does everybody know about that? Early voting? Early voting is nothing unique. 34 other states and Washington, D.C. has it. And also, in the 2016 presidential election, did you know that 46% of the United States had already voted before that election day? 46%. So it's nothing unique. It's nothing novel. The sky didn't fall. All right, we need that in Rhode Island. So we're doing everything we can to support the early voting bill because we know that we have folks working 2 or 3 jobs on that particular Tuesday and they can't get out and vote. So any barrier to voting is something that we're going to fight against. All right? We see all over the country that there's all these voter suppression bills coming on. So let's at least open it up so that we can have early voting in Rhode Island. All right? Early voting. The other thing, and I want to go to name 2 things for the sake of time, but also the sake of our focus. We're focused. Is we are working with Direct Action for Rights and Equality. Anybody ever heard of them? DARE! DARE! How dare they? We have the audacity to be working with DARE as partners with many others because we feel with the increasing gentrification in the city of Providence there needs to be rent control, at least on the ballot. Are you with me? Rent control. I grew up in Boston, they had rent control in Boston, they have rent control in New York, and guess what? The sky didn't fall. All right, so there's nothing crazy about rent control. So we are working on early voting, and we are working on rent control to be on the November ballot in Providence. Now, we have to understand the environment we live in. We live in Rhode Island. All right, somebody might say, well, how about home ownership? Well, let's talk about home ownership. Did you know that in Rhode Island, the black home ownership rate is 5th from the bottom? Some people say it's the worst, and it might be the worst, but I want to be accurate. The last time I looked, it was 5th from the bottom. Not a good statistic. 30%. That's one of the worst rates in the country. Here in Rhode Island, do you know that the home ownership rate in Rhode Island is 64%, and that gap between 30 and 64%, I can say that gap is the largest in the country. The gap between black home ownership and white home ownership in Rhode Island is the largest in the country. We got to do something about that. Agreed? We got to do something about that. Gentrification on one hand and the lack of home ownership opportunities on the other hand is a recipe for what? Disaster. So we understand that. So how about the workforce? Some people say that the best social program is a job. Well, I particularly agree with that. A job is helpful. Income is helpful. Whatever you need to do to sustain yourself. So minority communities or people of color still face widespread discrimination and chronic education and skills gaps when trying to enter and navigate Rhode Island's workforce. At the problem's root is the Rhode Island public school system. The system. For example, according to the 2017 Rhode Island Economic Progress Institute report, the former Poverty Institute, so I believe everything they say, blacks were twice as likely as whites to have low educational attainments. And according to the 2017, not 2001 or 2002, 2017 fresh statistics, Latino Academic Opportunity Index is the worst in the country. The fastest growing population in the state is the worst in the country, meaning that those Latinos in the South Bronx, those Latinos in East LA, those Latinos in El Paso, Texas, if you give them a standardized test and you put on kids from Providence and Central Falls sitting beside them, believe me, our kids will do worse than those kids. Think about that. Fastest growing population, the workers of the future. All right, and finally, did you know, according to a March 2017 journal article, that 66% of students, 2/3 of students entering CCRI, our state community college, need remedial work? Now, if that's not an indictment, I don't know what is. 2/3 of the students entering the community college. I didn't say Brown or Bryant, Salva Regina, or PC. I'm talking about the community college. 2/3 need remedial work. So what's the system doing from K through 12? I rest my case. Now, how about the business community? What we're doing, we're working with established groups like the Black and Latino Contractors Association, and we're working with the Rhode Island Black Business Association. You know, we're not trying to reinvent wheels. We're trying to collaborate with people that are doing the work in specific areas. So what can businesses do? Businesses can support workers of color by truly being an affirmative action and equal employment employer by word and deed. Not just that little thing you put on the advertisements. Do it by word and deed. Hiring and promotion policies and practices must be fair and equitable. An inclusive workplace environment must be created and maintained. Great workers come in all colors and skills. Go out and find them. At the top, even the best diversity-heralded companies do a poor to fair job of hiring and promoting employees at senior levels. For Rhode Island to prosper, this must immediately change. We need opportunity. And finally, someone asked me, is the purpose of the NAACP today any different than when it was founded in 1909? And I said, no. The purpose is the same. The NAACP exposes and fights discrimination, racism, and bigotry whenever it rears its ugly head. In 1909, we fought lynching in support of the right for everyone to vote. In 2018, we fight mass incarceration in the right for everybody to vote. Still, all right? Everybody should have the right to vote. In 1954, the first year they kept statistics, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the national black unemployment rate was approximately twice as high as the unemployment rate for whites. Twice as high. Now guess what? In 2018, 64 years later, we find the black unemployment rate is still approximately twice as high as the unemployment rate for whites. 64 years later, no change. Twice as high. And even more disturbing, according to the 2017 Rhode Island Economic Progress History Report, Poverty Institute, so I believe everything they say, in Rhode Island, the black median wage is 57% of the white median wage. Here in Rhode Island, the median wage for a black person in Rhode Island is $36,719. The median wage for a white person in Rhode Island, and I'm not saying that that's great across the country, but let's talk about Rhode Island, is $64,286. So finally, according to the 2014 Bureau of Labor Statistics, nationally, a black person with some college or an associate's degree, makes less than a white person with a high school diploma. Let that marinate for a minute. We always tell people, go get educated, go to school, get a good job. Black people with college educations, associate's degree in this country make less than white people that just have a high school diploma. All right? So that has to change. We need fairness in this. And according to the 2011 U.S. Census Survey, the median white family in America has a net worth more than 15 times larger than the wealth of the median black family. The median white family in the country has a median wealth of $111,146. The median wealth of a black family in this country is $7,000. We have a very long way to go, but the NAACP, a voice for the voices, will stay the course, and I appreciate, to the bottom of my heart, this precious opportunity to speak to each and every one of you. Thank you for all you do. You guys are drum majors for justice. Martin Luther King would appreciate you, and so do I. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Vincent, President of the Province NAACP. One little file, which is good.